The 90s were a fun age of experimentation in the world of animation. Nickelodeon was a go-to channel for many kids, since it was the home of fun characters such as our favorite group of adventurous and curious babies. But in a world that seems larger than life and being faced with the challenges of growing up, who comes out as the most good and who is the most evil? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Rugrats, Good to Evil.
In my day, we had plenty of fun just throwing rocks at each other.
As usual, we'll be starting with the most pure and noble character and working our way down. These characters are the good. Tommy takes the gold medal of good. He was known as the bravest of his group of friends and encouraged them all to take on new challenges and stay optimistic.
It was you! You're the kidnapper!
He's the one to stand up to Angelica before Susie was there to help them, since the adults are unable to really understand them. He was the only one to refuse to return Dill, even when he admitted that Dill was a handful. He strived to be a responsible older brother, even if he didn't fully understand what that meant. Kira was introduced as Coco's assistant in the Paris film, and she stuck around since then after marrying Chaz. She gains a lot of hero points for her actions in the movie, standing up to the woman that bullied her to help Chaz and Chucky. She accuses Coco of not even knowing their names, and when she's thrown from the car, she holds Chucky's bear and treats it with a level of affection that tugs at the heartstrings. She still makes it to the wedding, returning the teddy to Chucky and revealing that she was the one to really have chemistry with Chaz. Coco using all of Kira's honest responses for her own gain.
Oh, how my heart beats wild.
She goes on to be a loving mother to both Chucky and Kimmy, even seen scooping them up into her arms as the boat filled with water and Rugrats go wild, while Chaz is seen panicking at the chaos. Dee Dee is a loving mother, devoted wife, and she gets the bronze medal of good. She's usually heard quoting Lipschitz, the renowned child psychologist, and using his teachings to raise her children and interact with their students. She supports her husband's sometimes reckless creations and always approaches everything with optimism. When told to seek out her inner goddess with her friends, she found it in an unexpected way, calling out the fair's mistreatment of her. She stood her ground, claiming she refused to give up identifying as a wife and mother because she loved that part of her life, and proudly declared herself as not a goddess, a woman.
Not a goddess, a woman!
She was the only one to defend Stu when he got them stranded after the boat sank, and she defended her friendship with Betty when a so-called expert ridiculed them both on the radio. It's not often she loses her cool, but it says a lot that she knows when to stand up for herself and her loved ones. Lulu met Lou while working in a hospital. She's made a living dedicating her life to help others and is always portrayed as sweet and approachable. She's level-headed and inviting and almost always has a smile on her face. She blended with the Pickles family with little effort, always rolling with the punches. Chaz was a nervous bureaucrat and caring single father. He's always open to seeking advice from his friends about anything from childcare to dating. He hid the truth about his wife passing from his son, not sure if his son could handle it. When he did open up, it was in a very heartwarming and sensitive way that made it a little easier for his son to understand.
The last thing she wrote in it was a poem for you.
He was quick to fall for Coco, believing all of her reactions were genuine and seeing her as a soulmate. Once Chucky burst into the church, crying out for his father and rejecting Coco, he held his child and called the wedding off, seeing the woman's true colors.
You were not the woman I thought you were.
He fell for Kira afterward, realizing that she was the one that had been telling Coco how to react. He had no issue accepting Kimmy and made an effort to try and learn some of their culture. Chucky is the most nervous of the group. Despite being one of the older kids, he's frightened of nearly everything, having to be convinced by Tommy to follow through on anything. He's easily tricked by Angelica, and his biggest ambition is to be as brave as his friend. His screams of fright are well known among viewers. His bolting and yelling "no" at his father marrying Coco was an emotional scene, since it was the aftermath of him realizing he was once again tricked by Angelica, fighting with Robo-Snail Jean-Claude, and having to face Coco once again.
And we got to stop that wedding!
He only wanted a mother who would love him and his father, and was brought to tears and confusion, wondering why she hated them so much. He grew to adore Kira and Kimmy, and in later episodes, came to be more bold and realize his worth. Susie was not always an ally of the babies, but she was quick to warm up to them and protect them from Angelica. She's smart as a whip, sweet as sugar, and was a favorite almost immediately.
Come on, Chucky, let's dance.
always trusting of the adults, seeking out the best of each person she met. Even when she was annoyed by Angelica, she still played games with the young girl and tried hard to be her friend. Like any kid, she mimicked the people around her, which meant she followed her parents' and siblings' examples. Many of her games involved recreating what she thought a prom was or voting for a leader. Spike is a good boy that we couldn't leave off the list. Being an animal, he's led by need and survival. He's protective of the babies, seeing them almost as his own. There's one episode in particular where Tommy is nearly attacked by a neighbor dog when wandering in another yard, and Spike immediately bolts onto the scene to protect the baby. He can be lazy and gluttonous at times, but always comes through when it matters. Betty was a feminist and pillar of their friend group, always open about her thoughts and supportive of her loved ones. She was the one elected leader after they were stranded.
I'm assigning Stu to baby watch.
She has nothing but love for her husband and children and encouraged Chaz to start dating again and exchange parenting tips with Dee Dee. She was the one to keep Charlotte from plummeting overboard to save a cell phone and was the one to not only grab the lifeboat but Dill's binky. She's a caregiver and protector to her very core, always making sure her twins got everything equally, and she never showed either to be favored over the other. There's even one episode where Phil and Lil become paranoid about not being the favorite, and Betty's seen making sure the bottles are measured as even as possible, with no visible difference between them. Lou is the fun grandparent to Tommy, Dill, and Angelica. He offers his own advice when Dee Dee and Stu become overly paranoid, insisting they don't need to rely on a book for every little concern. He adores his grandchildren, and while he can be stubborn and vocal about his disputes, tries to instill things such as gratitude and honesty into his grandchildren. He fell for Lulu because of how she also valued family, telling his son no one would take the place of his first wife. But he did adore the woman he married.
Of course, no one will ever replace your mother.
Lil and Phil are bug eaters and mischief causers. They tend to dive into everything head first. They aren't quite as brave as Tommy, usually being intimidated by Angelica. Their recklessness led to them being nagged by Chucky to the point where when Chucky debated if everyone would be better without him, he thought of Lil and Phil being absolute terrors and destroying their home.
That's the last time I ever listen to you guys!
Still, they're sweet and accepting of others, warming up to Kimmy quickly. They call things as they see them, and were the ones to try and return Dill in exchange for another baby, to try and cheer Tommy and his family up. Kimmy is Kira's daughter, and upon being introduced, is established as being as adventurous as Tommy. In fact, Chucky initially says, "Oh great, another Tommy," when she convinces them to leave the ride.
Great, another Tommy!
When she and Chucky become family after the whirlwind of an almost wedding, she's immediately protective of him. She was even his right hand when they went back to reenacting The Godfather, demanding Angelica show the redhead respect. Howard is Betty's stay-at-home husband, who struggles to be seen as more masculine. He loves his children and respects his wife, always seeking out a way to better himself to be a good example and a strong partner for Betty.
Howard, you missed a spot over on the side there.
He's never upset with how bold his wife can be, instead praising her for it, and for that, we love him. Randy and Lucy will mention next, with a brief nod to their other children. Lucy is a successful doctor, and Randy is a television writer.
Sounds remarkably like the last 4 ideas I rejected.
They instilled a lot of character in their children, encouraging them to pursue interest in law, space, and culture. They are caring and driven people, always looking to give their children every experience they can. They even allowed Susie to go on the cruise with their friends, just so she can have the chance to travel, even if the rest of the family couldn't be there. Melinda was Chucky's mom. We don't know much about her, other than she was a loving woman during her life. She adored her family and always was presented as sweet and caring. Chucky brings her up after learning about her, saying that his dad said she was an angel watching over them.
She's up there watching me from heaven.
A wonderful thought to have, and we're sorry we didn't get to learn more about her. The most we know is that she and Chaz met at a swap meet and she passed when Chucky was very young. Dill we have to rank a little lower because while he is a baby and driven by immediate need, we see his personality more from the perspective of Tommy and the other babies. Dill was a main focus in one of the films, with him first being born and becoming a part of the family.
They already love each other.
From the view of an adult, he only wants to eat and sleep, which is normal for an infant. To the other babies, Dill is selfish and hard to get along with, to the point that the others actually try to return him and exchange him for another baby. He throws major fits, wastes things, and knows how to get his way. And boy, does he take full advantage. Boris and Minka are a loving elderly couple, always sure to share their wisdom and experience with their daughter and her friends. They treat everyone they come into contact with as family, even if they're just neighbors, and always take the time to teach the children about things such as Passover.
Passover is the greatest holiday of the year.
They were present when Dill was being born, making sure Dee Dee didn't get sidetracked, picking some odd setup to give birth in, and merely focused on having the baby safely. Stu is a caring husband and father, but tends to be stubborn. He's passionate about his work, but makes a lot of mistakes that can cause some issues. The whole reason they were called to Paris was because the Reptar he designed wound up losing its head and destroying the set. His inability to focus on anything other than his work leads to the babies being unattended and in dangerous situations, or able to be bullied by Angelica. He argues with his brother and father more often than not, and always acts exhausted.
Pushy, lazy, bossy, inconsiderate, nosy, good for nothing, busybody.
We don't think he's a bad guy, but his priorities are a little skewed. Still, he does love his family and took the time to tell Tommy how important it was to be a good older brother to Dill. His actions led to them being on an unsafe boat and being stranded on an island, but he did it out of being able to be with his loved ones over a bunch of strangers.
All I wanted to do was have a little adventure.
Though he seems to be tired of them, he does appreciate them and sees them as a valuable support system. With that said, we've arrived at the neutral territory. These characters fall in the gray area. Angelica is the worst of the kids for sure, but we hesitate to label her as evil. Yeah, she's underhanded, manipulative, and greedy. She's known for terrorizing the babies and making them do things for her out of fear or not understanding that she was using them. She's jealous of Susie's intellect and ability to be genuinely sweet, and she competes against her whenever she can.
Susie's a chicken. I'm not.
One of her greatest fears was being replaced as the cutest kid and being deprived of attention. We won't go into the dark theories surrounding Angelica or the show, and that isn't the reason she's put in the gray area. We're giving her the tiniest bit of slack because we know the sort of household she lives in. She repeats things her parents say about her Uncle Stu being a failure of an inventor and bossing others around as her mother does. Her parents see her in learning to be independent and being creative, so Angelica mimics the behavior that she thinks will lead to her being praised. She acts mean and goes to being sweet because she sees Drew and Charlotte act that same way around family and coworkers.
Grandpa, can we go to the circus?
There was even a moment where she was praised for making a mess with paint, her mother calling it bold artwork, and being disappointed when Angelica actually painted responsibly. She does have moments where she regrets her choices, such as when she came clean about helping to set up Coco and Chaz. So, since she's a kid, still learning acceptable behavior, we place her in the gray. Charlotte is more ruthless than her husband, and not just when it comes to business. Almost always seen with a phone in her hand, she thrives on being the best, and that tends to get in the way of her being a mother or an aunt. Now, some of what she says is valid.
This is an outrage.
She makes a statement about Angelica having to radiate self-esteem in order to not be eaten alive in a world where men were more successful than women. She wanted Angelica to be able to thrive as a young woman and as an adult, but Charlotte was often blind to how her own drive interfered with her parenting. There's been times she and Drew were horrible about communicating plans and almost didn't have a babysitter for Angelica, and even let Angelica watch part of The Godfather so she could close a deal without being pestered. But we give her major hero points for her actions in the Rugrats Gone Wild movie. It was her that broke open the bottom of the boat so they could escape onto the life raft Betty retrieved, pulling an impressive move on the audience. But we also dock her points because this was after she tried to get her assistant to divert a storm and nearly leaped overboard to save her phone.
I need you to divert a tropical storm.
Drew was one of the main influences in Angelica's life and has a very conflicting relationship with his brother. Whenever he talks about Stu succeeding in anything, it involves either selling out his toys or abandoning them completely. He's supportive of his wife, but also allows her to teach Angelica how to boss others around. He's guilty of bad-mouthing his brother in front of his daughter, which leads to Angelica not respecting Stu as much of an authority figure. He didn't even notice his daughter running away, and stated when she came through the door crying that he didn't even know she was out of her room, showing he's quick to write her off and not take notice of her activities.
I thought you were still in your room, safe and sound.
Finally, we've reached the dark side. These characters are the bad and the evil. Fluffy was Angelica's cat in the later seasons, and while not a powerful character, she was essentially known as a cat version of Angelica. We rank her lower than the young girl because, unlike Angelica, she had no moments of displayed regret or realization. She doesn't see anything she does as wrong. It's said that pets take after their owners, and this is the best example we can think of when a pet takes after all the bad parts of a person's personality.
Did naughty old Spike scare Fluff Fluff?
The ever-famous Jonathan is mostly known by name, being scolded by Charlotte pretty frequently. He's an underappreciated assistant that gets demoted to babysitter on a whim. While it's easy to feel bad for him being ordered around, he is also quick to try and find something to use as blackmail against his boss. Jean-Claude was present during the Paris movie and shared his boss's dislike for children and people in general.
Unfortunately, you just got the boot.
He delighted in being able to use RoboSnail to take the kids in the Reptar suit out, showing not only complete disregard for their safety, but all the residents in Paris. The guy causes a lot of damage. Sure, so do the babies, but since he's an adult, we have to hold him pretty high up there. It should be no surprise who takes the gold medal of villainy. Coco was a hateful woman who would gladly rip open a child's stomach to get her fancy chocolates back.
Chocolate! Get them back!
Open wide.
She tried to trick Chaz into marrying her just so she could be promoted, terrorizing Chucky in the meantime. She was negligent and showed no mercy to anyone who worked for her, only showing some kindness to Jean-Claude because of their inside jokes about shared misery. What do you think? Who are the most good and evil characters in Rugrats? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.